right, so today I'll be going over our M8080 for everybody. I don't know how familiar everybody is with it or how many of you have used it in the past, but it is our matrix mixer. It is a DSP, an EQ, a compressor, priority setting switch, everything basically you need to run your audio system. The M8080 by itself is going to be a standalone device, but it can also use Dante to connect multiple together, and we will get into that later. So today we're going to go over the entire series of the M8080 products. We'll go over some in-market applications, and then, as I just noted, we will go over the expanded functionality that Dante allows with it. So yeah, as I stated before, it's a signal processing unit. It's a very cost-effective package for what you get with it, but the cost effectiveness doesn't really mean that it's not as powerful as you think it is. It's a great system, and we'll go over it. So the M8080 series is dedicated to doing music paging and zone management for commercial and audio applications. It includes a digital mixer unit, which is supported by various different remote controllers, remote audio I/O units, and remote paging microphones. And it is software driven. To set it up, you do have to be networked into it, and you will set it up fully on your PC. So this is the front of the unit as you're going to see it in your rack. It is a 1U unit. It's going to have a small LCD screen for you, those of you in the room. The M8080 I know is on in the rack in that room. You can take a look at it later if you haven't taken a look at it before. The LCD display is going to show you the device name, the firmware, all of that relevant information, your current presets, your connectivity, and your DSP status. And then as well as that LCD screen, you are going to have LED indicators that are going to show you your 12 separate status lights as well as clipping. And here we have the back of the unit. It's fairly straightforward. These green connectors here are your analog inputs. There are 8 inputs, 8 outputs. Then we have our relay outputs and an RS-232 connector. Then you're going to see these 4 Ethernet ports in the back. These 2 here are your GPI ports. And then we have the connectivity for the controllers and other expandability. Here's your Ethernet port for plugging into your network. And then this larger section here is for where the Dante module will insert into it if you are using it. The first of the controllers we'll get into for the M8080 is the M-8080I. This is your input-output module. So if you have a application where you're going to need remote input of any type of analog device, microphone, or line level input, this will be one of your go-tos. It has a built-in analog digital converter. It has 2 analog inputs, your mic and stereo line. It also has phantom power for that microphone, and it has a change for your input sensitivity. It is directly powered by the network cable itself. You can run them, all of these separate controllers I get into, so I don't have to repeat it every time because you'll get sick of hearing my voice, is the 100 meter runs, and you're going to want to use shielded Cat5 cables for all of them. Here's kind of a breakdown of the inside of it so you can see. Everything I just went over is pretty straightforward. If you have any questions about our controllers themselves, we can ask them after, and there are some in that room for you to see. But the main thing is you have your A's, your analog inputs, then you have your microphone input. There's a small knob beside it for your volume control. Then you have your switch for your phantom power and your signal level indicators. And then once you break it down, you have, of course, your Ethernet port where it connects back to the M8080, and then you have your analog input-output. The next one we have, there's 2 very similar units. They both look the same, but the M8080D is going to be your controller that does straight volume and input control for your routing. It does not have any analog inputs or outputs. It connects directly to the M8080 via Ethernet, and you can daisy chain them together. And then using the LCD screen, as I said, you can adjust your volume with the knob, or you can click the volume and turn it to change your different input-output routing options. The inside of it is going to look very similar to the one we just saw. It's very straightforward with that knob and LCD screen. Usability is very easy. but it does have a brother that we'll get to here next, and it is the RC. The only real difference with this one and the M802 is this one has 2 analog outputs for you. So if you're in an application where you're in a remote room and you need to send audio out to a separate amp for audio in that room, this would be the one you'd want to go to. The inside of it is exact same, except now you have those audio outputs on your analog side. And then the controller that we use the most with the M8080 and most of our different clients and users have adopted and enjoy using the most is the M800 RCT. It is a touchscreen control. On top of course, the physical looks of it being a 4.3-inch touchscreen and not having a knob or anything like that. The biggest difference with this one is now you can have all of your presets set into it, and with a click of a option on the menu, you can set your different presets instead of having to go through the menu and click and rotate through and changing your different in and outs on the other controllers. Again, it is directly powered by your Ethernet cable, and they can be daisy chained together. And just like the other ones, 100-meter run, Cat5 cable, make sure it's shielded, and you'll be good to go. The install of this one is even more straightforward. It does not have any analog inputs or outputs, so you're just going to have a Cat5 cable in, and you're going to have a Cat5 cable out for daisy chaining them together. And then this is the module that can be installed in the back for Dante, and we will go into the functionality of the Dante later in the slideshow. But by installing the Dante module, you can actually connect 16 different M8080s together for full functionality. That gives you 192 inputs and outputs. So the versatility and scalability of the M8080 when you're using Dante is massive. There's not many projects that it's not going to be able to handle. If you have a project with more than 192 inputs and outputs, we'll be happy to help you, but it's going to be a massive system. It's fully powered by the M8080, doesn't need a separate power supply. Just slide it in and you're going to be good to go. If you're not familiar with Dante, we'll go over it a little bit here shortly, and the gentleman in the room can explain it to you much more. The other device we have in the M8080 series for input on it is the M800RM. This is a remote microphone. So with the remote microphone, it allows you to have 12 different zones set up for paging. The LCD screen and the knobs allow you to have easy access to scroll through them, select them, change your volume control. The USB port allows you to load separate sound files and chimes for you to have it set into Signal. And then on the very bottom of it here, on the next slide I'll show you easier, you will have your Signal light if it's on or off, and you'll have your push to talk button. Very straightforward, easy to use, very versatile. And then, sorry, voice is dry. It's drier here in Alberta than it is out here. We don't have humidity. So the M804EX allows extension of the 8080 series to give you more control inputs. It is especially helpful in use case scenarios where you're going to have a remote site somewhere across your building, like a multiplex or a school, where you're going to need more control inside of separate rooms and you want to install more controllers. So this one's going to allow you to have 3 ports for control only, and one of the ports will do audio plus control. And then it has a home run, I'll show you on the next slide here, to go back to the M8080. So by using the 804EX, it allows you to have more controllers instead of just daisy chaining them together where they're close by each other. This one, you can run it out and have even more versatility that way. And then off of this one, you again can daisy chain them even more. So here's a connection example of how you would run the M804EX off of one of the remote ports on the 8080. And then off of it, you can have your separate volume controls scattered across whatever type of building you're putting them in. And you can, of course, daisy chain them as shown in the top left-hand corner back to that port as well. And here's a riser example of how SIP integration can work with the M8080. So using our SP11N, the M8080 becomes even more versatile. It's designed with Vox and mute functions in mind for TOA amplifiers. And the SIP module is going to allow you now to have much more operability depending on what your SIP server management is. But a lot of the devices we're installing with M8080s nowadays, they're going into a SIP interface of one kind or another. And we'll just cover a few applications and different install profiles here for you to give you an idea of the versatility of the system. So the M8080, if someone asked me what the M8080 was best suited for, I honestly would have a hard time coming up with the correct answer because it is so versatile that it's used in almost any different application we do. It's included in many designs we do for many different verticals and applications. Anywhere from the list you see here, sports facilities to gyms, malls, hotels, museums. With Dante and having up to 192 inputs, outputs, the scalability of the system is very, very large. And I have a hard time thinking of most applications that we come across where the M8080 isn't going to be helpful in one way or another. So for large facilities, here's an example where you can just have 4 zones of audio coming off into one of our DA500F amps. It's going to operate quite straightforward for paging with a separate volume control somewhere in the building. And then, of course, you can have your sound card on your PC connect to the M8080 for broadcast. You can use the remote microphone, or you could bring in a SIP gateway as well. All 4 zones will be individually controlled, have their own volume control. Yeah. And then here's where that M8080 device that we first talked about comes into play, especially is somewhere like a fitness center where you have a arena or acrobatic studio where you want to have a input to plug devices into, as well as your own separate volume control. You would run the 8020IO to have device input for the teacher's microphone or CD player or any type of input. And then you would bring down one of our control units. In this example, it's showing the M800RC to have your volume control and input selection for them. So instead of having to go all the way back to your head desk to ask for different inputs or anything like that, volume controls, you can have it all in one room, but it can still all be controlled from that main desk as well. And I see we have a question here. So the M8080 versus the VX3000, the main thing is the VX3000 is even more expandable than this, and the VX3000 is meant for mass notification. It's not going to have the DSP and processing that the M8080 has for background music and everything like that. You could use them in conjunction with each other, but the VX3000 is a mass notification and paging system. Here's just a different diagram of that same aquatic center, showing you how you can have it set up with different controllers in different rooms. So for like the karate dojo, they're having just a volume knob with selector on the wall with our F122 speakers and a small DA250F amp. So that way they can select what source they want to play, what volume they want. In other parts of the building, they're going to have the MW41BT, which we're not really covering in this one, but it'll allow you to have Bluetooth input on the wall as well as your source selector. It'll also tie into the system, but it isn't part of the M8080 ecosystem. This is just a ease diagram of that same aquatic center. Not much to do with the M8080. But then the next big integration for it, the next kind of step up in size of install for the M8080 would be something like a hotel, where you're going to have multiple different convention centers. You're going to have multimedia rooms where you're going to have video projectors. You're going to have TV walls. And you may have to start tying these together. But at this stage, we're still not using Dante. We're just going to expand our control systems by using the M804EX, which gives us those separate outputs for the different I/O and controllers on the walls. For the meeting room where you might have a projector and a microphone, connecting via XLR. Then you have your bars where you're going to just have different music, but you want to be able to have your source selection and volume control. That's when we would use the M-8080RC, which is put it on the wall and you can change everything. But in all honesty, for most installs like this, we would go with the 800 RCT. It just gives you more functionality with that touchscreen, because instead of scrolling through and changing your input to your output, and I want this sports game over to these speakers, you can have your presets set, and with the click of your finger, it's all going to go to the right. Your right input's going to go to your right outputs. You can even have your volume preset. It'll just make functionality a lot easier for you. And then for a restaurant and bar or somewhere where you have like karaoke, you can have your TV fed back into the M8080 from a separate location, and then either fed through the whole system or fed back through to just 2 speakers at your bar. It's going to allow you to have, again, that input output in one area of the bar where you might have the karaoke playing. It's going to allow you to have, maybe you want more relaxing music on your patio. So every input and output is going to be assignable. You can have different sources playing on them, same sources. It just gives lots of versatility that way. This is, again, a larger paging system for a mall or retail. So the M8080, even though it's great for background music and multimedia for bars and uh, sports venues and stuff like that, we use it quite a bit in just straight paging systems, just to allow routing and matrixing of the system if there's a little bit of background music mixed into it. So in this example, for example, there are your 2 analog inputs being fed over to 4 different amplified. Sorry, brain's going dead. 4 different amplified areas for separate paging zones, and just shows the versatility of the system. Just the, with the FMA and putting in for your background music, allowing easy override of all the systems when the paging happens. And then we'll get into Dante functionality. So once the Dante card is installed, this is what you'll see in the back. You're just going to strictly have 2 more Ethernet ports. Dante has become a standard across the industry, is becoming more and more cost effective. You're going to have it fully set up. You are best off having a 1 gigabyte per second router when you're using Dante, especially as you get into higher quality audio codecs and everything like that, or especially if you ever have a system where you're passing video through it. 100 megabytes per second will work, but having a backplane in that router that handles a true 1 gigabit per second will be most beneficial and especially future-proofed. So the reason to use Dante is interoperability. You have the ability for systems and software to change digital audio effectively wrapped up in the IP packet, so it's all software driven. The packets contain the timing information, so you're not going to get garbled noises, you're not going to lose packets. It has auto-correcting built into it. The efficiency, it allows many channels of audio to be transmitted and received over a single cable instead of having runs back and forth like we have had in the analog days and beginning of the digital revolution. The Dante transmission is one signal to many components. So because it's all networked, it's all going to operate over that TCP/IP standard. No matter what brands you prefer, all Dante-enabled products work together with an existing IT system. We'll go to the next one here. And then discoverability. The Dante devices that we'll be using in ours, they're all discoverable on your network. They allow easy setup. The latency is extremely small, as low as 150 microseconds. And it is consistent with Dante audio over IP on all devices. It has a nice user interface. Everything is set up via software. Plug your laptop into it. If you have a VPN set up with your client, you can get in and do it remotely. And then scalability. Like I said earlier, 16 M8080s can be connected together. That gives you 192 inputs and outputs. And then for the for configuring it, you can do the native M8080 software. This is when you're going to be doing 2 or more 8080s, or via Dante's own software. The manufacturer of Dante is Dante, and their controller software will allow you to get into other third-party pieces of hardware and control them as well. And here's just a diagram of how Dante can work. This could be a large hotel where doing audio video runs between different conference centers or to the back to the head end is going to be not feasible. By putting a Dante card in each M8080, they're going to network together over the existing network. And then from them, you can go out to your different amplifiers, have different source feeds back in, and they're going to operate as if they're one giant M8080 with everything plugged in, but they're just physically in different locations. Any questions?
Yeah.
RC, it's only volume control, right?
Yeah, 800 RC only volume. At 102 RC, they align out from the panel.
How if I need to select any input to any output only from touch screen?
You can configure it from the software.
No, if that the end user.
You're talking about on like the 800 RC2?
Yeah. If we need to select the input.
How he can select the
So I will show you on one of the diagrams here because that's how they. Where is it here? So if you had an I/O, if you look in the bottom left-hand corner where that gray box is, if you have one of the I/O modules on the walls, and you want to have local control of it, you would also have one of the controls on the wall nearby, or you control it back from the head end or via software. So the I/O module is just strictly I/O. It doesn't have the control on it. You'd have to have both there.
So the control only from that screen or the microphone itself. Correct?
Sorry, I missed the first word.
The control for, let's say, zone selection is only from touch screen or microphone.
The touch screen, the microphone, or the 800 RCs like these guys. Let me scroll back. With these guys, these will allow you volume control and your input output selection.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, these will do your same control as the touch screen, but the touch screen allows you easier access to hit your different presets that you have. Instead of scrolling through and going, okay, this is the input I want, and then scrolling and this is the output I want. On the touch screen, you're going to have your separate presets that you can go into and hit karaoke night, and everything's going to go the way you want to have it. It's just easier to use that way.
Okay, thank you.
I see another one in the chat here.
So we will be shielded Cat 5B or better when connecting to the unit there.
Yeah, always use shielded cables.
Yeah, any question?
Or
Yeah, we answered. The remote controller requires shielded cable. Yes, it does. When they use M-8080 and when I use VX3000, it seems both state they're robust. Yeah. So VX3000, if there's a very huge system and also require the backup power and all these emergencies and monitoring. All right. So, thank you, Scott. Very nice
Well, thank you guys.
presentation.
There's no other questions. Yeah, sorry, I can barely see the showroom, so I didn't know if anybody's got hands up or anything. So,
Okay.
if we're all good, thank you guys for your time.
seems so.
Thank you, Scott.
Dr. Sound.